All right, with that, I'll call the February 1st, 2021 remote meeting for the West Richland City Council to order at 6 p.m. And before we call the roll, Stephanie, if you'd read the virtual meeting ground rules, I'd appreciate it, please.
Sure. Please make sure the name shown at the bottom of your video view is the name you would like the mayor to use. You can click this, or you can change this by right-clicking on the three dots in the upper corner of your video view and clicking rename. If you have an unstable internet connection, please also connect through the phone. That will allow you to continue to participate even if you lose internet connection. If you call in after you have joined on video, click the arrow between mute and video, and there is a button for switch to phone audio. Clicking this button provides participant ID. Please call in with that ID, as then your phone is associated with your video. We will mute everyone until a designated comment period. And when the mayor asks for public comments, if you raise your virtual hand, he will call on you and you will be unmuted. To virtually raise your hand, click on participants and then click on raise hand. If you are participating by phone only, press *9 to raise your hand. All right, roll call. Brent Gary.
Here.
Richard Bloom.
Here.
Fred Brink.
Here.
David Fetto.
Here.
May Hayes.
Here.
Kate Moran. Kate.
Can't hear you, Kate.
Present.
Thank you.
John Smart.
Here.
Ken Stoker.
Here.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'm going to ask Councilmember Fetto to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. If you give us just a few for Stephanie to mute everybody, we'll turn it over to you on a countdown. Go ahead.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. All righty. Council, the agenda's before you this evening. We do have a matter that requires an additional executive session at the end of this meeting as per RCW 423110I to discuss legal counsel representing a city litigation, which the city is party to. And with that, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented this evening?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Councilman Smart. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, council. We don't have any presentations this evening, so that brings us to the consent agenda, which would include the payment of the bills, approve the minutes of the regular meeting on January 18th, 2022. Resolution 0822, approving a letter of intent to comply with the Washington State Department of Transportation Title VI plan. Resolution 0922 to authorize the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement for Hanford Communities. If there's anyone from the audience who'd like to speak to our consent agenda this evening, please raise your hand or *9 on your phone to be recognized and unmuted to address the consent agenda. Stephanie, I do not see anyone. Do you this evening?
I do not see anyone, no.
Okay. All right, with that, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion, and Stephanie, you can pick out the second there. I believe we had a couple. Perfect, thank you. Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, council. Moving right along to our first citizen public comment this evening for items that are not on the agenda. If you wish to address council this evening, go ahead and please raise your hand or *9 on the phone. And then Stephanie will recognize you, unmute you. You can address council. Stephanie, do you see anyone?
I do not see anyone, no.
Nor do I. Thank you. With that, we'll go ahead. Number 8, we have no ordinances, resolutions, motions, and public hearings this evening. Nor do we have any unfinished business. And with that, we move on to new business, which related to law enforcement litigation, reform letter, and then also an update of legislative actions that are being taken in Olympia. And I'm going to throw it at Chief Majetic this evening to talk to that. If you would, Chief, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council and audience. Here at the end of the month, the local leaders from Kennewick, Richland, Pasco, City of Prosser, West Richland, Benton County, and Franklin County sent a letter to the judicial heads for both the Law and Justice panel in the House and the Public Safety panel in the Senate to consider or reconsider some legislation that was written last year as far as police reform efforts. The letter addressed 3 major issues that affected law enforcement, not only in the state, but locally, addressing 3 areas. The first one was House Bill 1310 from last year and Senate Bill 1054. 1310, which I'll bring up again because it attempted to address a number of issues, had actually mandated law enforcement to employ less lethal efforts prior to any prospective use of deadly force. Unfortunately, in the very next Senate Bill 1054, they banned use of military type equipment, including 50 caliber or above munitions for law enforcement use. The problem is that the majority of our less lethal projectiles, beanbag rounds or foam rounds, I think you've heard a number of different names, or even pepper ball rounds, the caliber of those rounds are actually above 50 caliber, which basically pulled all our less lethal alternatives off the road. The intent of the legislation apparently was not to do that, but unfortunately they wrote it into law. In compliance with the law, those items were removed. We're hoping that the bills going through the legislature now will correct that, and we're fairly optimistic. The second subject that the letter was to address was, again, House Bill 1310, which addressed police use of force. The problem with that was they prohibited police officers from using force unless probable cause existed. Probable cause is a very high standard. You actually would have to have a completed investigation and just below the threshold of proof beyond a reasonable doubt in order to even lay hands on somebody. What occurred as a result were numerous cases, not only locally, but across the state, where police officers simply had to let the person go, even though they were reasonably certain that that person had just committed a crime or the person that they were seeking. But the legislation prevented that from occurring. And finally, Senate Bill 1054 last year prohibited vehicular pursuits unless it was under very specific circumstances, which really, for all intents and purposes, banned police pursuits. West Richland Police Department immediately adopted a no pursuit policy after the bill was written, just because it was filled with language that would really open the city of West Richland to increased liabilities. So this letter, very well written, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate you and the fellow city heads that drafted it, was sent to the state legislature, and I think with their voices combined with the voices all across the state, hopefully we'll get some modicum of relief as far as public safety. And if you haven't had a chance to read the letter, I urge everybody to do so. It provides some real world examples of some of the fallout from this poorly written legislation from the year past. And just to name the people who had signed the letter: Mayor Bill McKay from Kennewick, Mayor Randy Taylor from City of Prosser, Mayor Michael Alvarez from City of Richland, Brent Gary, City of West Richland, Miss Barajas, Mayor, City of Pasco, Sean Small, Chairman, Benton County Board of Commissioners, and Clint Didier, Chairman, Franklin County Board of Commissioners. And finally, Mr. Mayor, there is some hope on the horizon. Unfortunately, it's still in the early stages of a lot of legislation going through the House currently. But I would draw everybody's attention to Senate Bill 5919. That seems to be the piece of legislation that's gaining the most legs and traction so far. It will lower the threshold for not only vehicular pursuits, but use of force to the reasonable suspicion standard in those cases where crimes against persons have taken place, which would be assault, DV, or robbery, or things of that nature. It seems to be the one that's really heading in the right direction, but we're still too early to tell. Give me about 2-3 weeks. Towards the end of the month, I think we'll have a better idea exactly which one of these proposed bills to correct the poorly written language from the year before actually go through and hopefully to the governor's desk. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, much appreciated. And of course, council, take note of anything that's coming from AWSC. They will also share with us needed action that might be taken, contacting your legislators in this matter, as well as others throughout the legislative session. So Chief, look forward to hearing from you in the very near future in regards to that. Thank you. With that, that moves us to our staff and council announcements and reports. So staff, if you have anything to share with council this evening, please go ahead and raise your hand. I will recognize you. Chief Medjaic. Muted, Chief.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. Quickly, I just wanted to thank everybody, not only in city council, but I see a lot of people out there in the audience that I saw at the events for both the ribbon cutting and the open house events on January 25th for the new police facility. I don't think we've ever had a turnout of this magnitude for any event of the city outside of National Night Out. Hundreds of people for both events came through or offered tours of the facility. And I can tell you resoundingly, everybody is extremely pleased with the final product that we delivered and the fact that we delivered on every single promise made during the educational campaign leading up to the vote. So I just want to thank everybody for attending. It meant a lot. And for those who could not attend that day from a scheduling conflict, we will try to hold a future event so everybody would have an opportunity to come through our new fine facility. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Stephanie?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to provide an update. I think I spoke with some of you regarding the upgrades to the city council chambers. So I did receive an update from the vendor. They are waiting for 2 key components and they got an estimated or an update to their estimate on arrival, and it won't be until mid-March. And so they are not scheduling any sort of install until they have that equipment in hand. So unfortunately, not good news. Another month and a half until they receive that equipment and install after that. So unfortunately, hybrid meetings probably will not happen before that.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. And unfortunately, with the governor's order in place, as far as the emergency order, that would restrict us from conducting any in-person meetings without the opportunities for a hybrid. So unfortunately, and be compliant, that's what we've got to deal with. So we'll keep you informed of what the status is on that. Thank you, Stephanie. Mr. Slade.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to update, the utility committee met before this meeting. They reviewed 3 consulting firms that had submitted statements of qualifications for our Well 3 project. And so we went through, we've selected the most qualified consultant. And so staff will now work on contract negotiations and scope. Hope to have that back to council to award a contract first meeting in March, or definitely no later than the second meeting in March.
Okay. Thank you, Roscoe. Any other staff members? Okay, seeing none, moving on to council for council announcements, reports, and or comments. If you have anything to share this evening, please raise your hand. I'll be recognized. I see Councilmember Moran.
Thank you very much. First, I would thank staff and the mayor for the tour that the few of us got today and that the others had gotten previously. It was fantastic. It's really great to see all of the growth that's going on in the city. On the 21st, there was a Benton Franklin Economic Development District and Benton Franklin Council of Governments meeting. And at the BFEDD, we had a representative from Senator Patty Murray's office come and talk to us about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, a little bit about that. And then we discussed some standard business going on. The BFEDD, there was an appointment of someone to the Regional Revolving Loan Committee. And then just some standard BFCOG things. On the 26th, we had our AWC put on the Great City Council meetings training. It talked a lot about how city councils run, Robert's Rules of Order, things like that. If anyone here has not attended something like that, I strongly recommend it. Every time I go, I always learn something new. So definitely recommend that. On the 27th, the day after, was AWC's City Action Days, and there was a lot going on. There was a lot of discussion about legislative items that are coming down the line. They have AWC has, sorry, let me scroll to that. AWC has a legislative priorities list, but the big key things that are going to be happening during legislative, it is a short session. They're going to be discussing the Blake decisions and law enforcement use of force clarifications, Open Public Meetings Act and virtual meetings, zoning mandates, defend against preemption, but policies that help cities provide access to housing, Growth Management Act changes, and rev options. Some of the big things that we should be watching are on that list. I can forward that list if you have not received that priorities list already, but there's a lot of things like SB 5670, who has the House bill that's with that, HB 782, that talks about the mandate for additional middle housing near transit and in areas currently zoned for single family detached housing. That's something that AWC opposes. Some priority bills are extending the current authorization for renewal of voter approved sales and use tax for transportation benefit districts beyond current 2 10-year term limitations, and that's SB 5510 and their House Bill 1523. Something of note also is a bill that our own representative, Matt Binke, who I guess soon won't be a representative because we're moving out of the 8th legislative district, but he's certainly ours. He sponsored House Bill 1772, limits the number of days a governor can make emergency decisions without legislative oversight. It currently has a public hearing, the public hearing was scheduled yesterday. And I want to see us do something similar to the letter for the police reform clarifications. I would love to see possibly the regional cities discuss going together to sponsor a letter in support of this as well, or something similar to it. There's another one that the Democrats have also put through, but this one has a bit more clarifications and shorter time limits, and that is House Bill 1772. And that is all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, send that information to Stephanie and I'll have her get it out to everybody else so they can take a look at it too. Thank you, Councilmember Moran. Councilmember Blue?
Well, I just was going to reflect on the fact that the legislature actually did something and the governor signed it, that the long-term care tax just got punted down the road for 18 months. And some of the changes to the bill actually makes it more fair to the older population, since they added basically you only have to contribute for 1 year in order to collect something if you're over the age of I think it's 58 or something of that nature. So all those people that went out and bought long-term care insurance, which you can't buy anymore because of the bill, by the way. You wasted time. Anyway, so you won't be taxed this year because the governor did sign it before the end of the month.
Great. Thank you. That all, Councilman?
Yep.
Very good. I didn't know if you were froze up there or not. Council Mayor Pro Tem Brink, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following the presentation by the chief with regard to the letter concerning House Bill 1310 and Senate Bill 1054, there's another bill before the House, well, it actually passed the House last week, substitute House Bill 1735, which deals with modifying the standard of use of force by police officers. And this has impact beyond just the police department, because one of the provisions in the revised bill is allowing police to provide assistance to first responders, medical professionals, and so forth. So it's hopefully the Senate and the governor will continue to pass this bill, because I think that some of the police reform that was done last year needs to be changed back to more reasonable measures where the police can provide service to the community, to others in the community as well. So that's my presentation for this evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brink. Much appreciated. I don't see anyone else this evening. So with that, Councilmember Hayes.
Yes, I just wanted to echo what Kate had said. Got to go on the tour on Monday, and you think you know a place, and going around, driving around for 3 hours. It was amazing to see what really is going on in our community, the growth, and how exciting to see everything that's ahead of us. So big thank you to staff putting it together. I really enjoyed it and learned a lot from it. So I really appreciate the time. Thanks.
Want to welcome. Thank you. Councilmember Smart.
Yeah, and just a special shout out to Stephanie for doing all the driving. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, I asked her if she got any Uber tips and she's forgot to put the cup out. So we'll have to remember that next time. Any other council members this evening? Okay, seeing none, that will move us on to our executive session. We'll adjourn into executive session for RCW 423110I to discuss legal counsel representation of the city's litigation or party to. There will be no action to follow this evening, and we'll be in for approximately 15 minutes. So we'll go ahead and give Stephanie a chance to say goodnight to everybody. Thank you for participating and joining us this evening, and we'll see you on Tuesday the 15th.